in the YouTube channel, capital T underscore HESCEN, of course, all capitals. Twitch gang, THE underscore SCEN. The Instagram, THE.SCEN. And the Twitter, SCEN underscore THE. And also follow Stoppage Time FC on Twitter. And of course, the Facebook page, Stoppage Time FC. Make sure we get all the business taken care of. We got Joe, we got Zach, we got Germaldo behind the camera, and our special guest, who not having the greatest week in his maiden voyage of football, is our main man Trav, newly initiated Sevilla and Liverpool fan. And this has been quite the week for him. I can't lie. So we're gonna get his thoughts, his maiden voyage into this. But Zach, Joe, start me out. How's everything going, and what's going on in the world of football?
What you got, Joe?
A little disappointed. Our unbeaten run came to an end on Sunday to Mr. Storms' Manchester United 2-0. So it was bound to happen at some point. Shockingly, I'm not all that torn up about it. Roles have certainly flipped in Manchester. Before, the Manchester Derby was the biggest deal for City fans, and now it is the opposite. This is their chance to celebrate and hoist a trophy. They beat us at the Etihad, but we have bigger goals in mind. So I'm not overly concerned about it. We have a quadruple still in play, so that's what we're focusing on. We're not too worried about that red side of Manchester right now.
Yeah, an 11-point lead with 11 matches to play. It's kind of hard to be down in the dumps if you're a Manchester City fan at this point. This is pretty good times. Obviously, now that you talk about the focus, the quadruple possibly, certainly back in Champions League play next week. So definitely bigger fish to fry. Never fun to lose to your rivals, but in the grand scheme of things,
we're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
We're gonna be all right.
Now,
don't worry, Jerm. We'll be all right, man.
You'll be all right. It'll be fine.
I know we'll be all right. We've been winning.
Stamford Bridge. Chelsea has now found its way. They played very well over the last 3 to 4 weeks. And they're now sitting in that Champions League spot, sitting in 4th place. Zach, what has happened in the last couple of weeks? That is it just Tuchel, or is it bigger things afloat?
Man, what a first 11 games from Tuchel. You know, to be unbeaten, and that's big. If you'd have told me that we would have navigated Atletico away, United at home, Liverpool away, and Everton at home, and we'd have taken 10 out of 12 points, I don't know if I would have been anything other than ecstatic. And that's exactly where I am right now. I'm very, very happy with it. I don't care how bad Liverpool's playing right now. Taking points from Anfield is always at a premium. Fans are not. To win against Everton like they did yesterday, with the resurgence of Kai Havertz in the false number 9 role, looks like he maybe have found a good spot for him. I'm more than pleased. I think Tuchel has definitely instilled something in this team that was missing with Frank Lampard, and that's, you know, that just goes to show the difference of a manager who's been doing this for 10 plus years as opposed to someone who's only been doing it for 2. You know, and Frank will find his way. He'll catch, you know, somewhere. I mean, realistically, he could go the route of Gareth Southgate and end up managing, you know, England. I think that would probably be a good spot for him. But Stamford Bridge is becoming a little bit of a fortress, which I'm plenty okay with that.
Yeah, so things looking up for both of so the Blue versus Blue podcast should be a happy affair this week, or whenever the next time it happens. It should be smiles and joy and glee on the Blue versus Blue podcast, but a place that's not so joyful and is not so gleeful right now, and that's in Liverpool. 6th loss in a row at Anfield, and Trav is newly initiated, so we're gonna get his thoughts on kind of what his initial thoughts are. But to me, this is just Murphy's Law season right now for Liverpool. Just anything that can go wrong has just gone wrong, and it continued. The loss to Chelsea, losing to Fulham this past weekend. Fulham is a likely relegation candidate, and it is just going completely off the rails. Trav, we're gonna bring you in, man. I know you're newly initiated to the sport, and I know you haven't been able to you haven't been with Liverpool all year, but are you ready? You want to change teams? It's early enough that I think we'll let you.
I'm not gonna change, but it's looking like we tanking. It's looking like a tank, man, and I'm not into the whole transfers and stuff there. That's going to be later on. I'll be newly inquired with that soon. But to ask you guys a question, if they tanking, why are they tanking? Why are they? I mean, are they losing because they just getting beat by a better team? Or they just losing because of, like you said, it's kind of like a avalanche. It's like if it ain't one thing, it's another. That's the question that I would like to ask you all.
I think, Trav, it is. We talked about this in the preview back in August, and I'm never one to wish misfortune on anybody, but Liverpool is basically the 2 previous seasons have gone about as well as they can possibly go in back-to-back seasons. They had all the form, all the health, everything just went well. And I hate to be like, because people don't believe in karma and soccer gods, but that's kind of what it is.
It's the sports gods.
Everything that could go wrong this season, Joe and Zach certainly step in, from injuries, off the field, personal issues, a board that didn't really give Klopp what he wanted, depending on what you believe. Like, it's just everything that could go bad has just happened, and it's just happened all at once.
I think it's purely between the ears for everybody at that club right now. I think the injuries, the off-field issues that have cropped up for Jurgen and for Alisson, I think is weighing heavily on everybody in that team, because the body language just is not right from the games that I've seen. They just don't look like the Liverpool team that we are used to seeing. And just fatigue from playing as many games as they have over the past 2 years. They went deep in almost all the competitions that they were involved in. When you're in England, you're playing 4, usually the big clubs are playing 4 competitions. And when you go deep into them, you're playing a lot of matches, and they pretty much were running the same 11 dudes out there for all of the big matches. So between just fatigue, mental fatigue, they're all humans. We're all people. And when you have that many just straight up tragedies happening around your club at one time, like that's just is enough to weigh on anybody's mind. So I personally think it's just a mental issue. It's not a skilled problem. Like we were talking before, they have enough good players still to be competing for a Champions League position. There's no reason they should be sitting in 8th right now, talent wise. So I think it's a mental hurdle that they're all struggling with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely like they said, it started as a snowball when VVD went down, and it's at an avalanche now. And I think it's a combination of between the ears. It's definitely between the ears for guys like Alisson. He looks absolutely dreadful this year, and that was before he got the awful news of his father passing. Then the forwards, I mean, Salah's scoring, but he's not being as dominant as what he has been the past 2 years. And it shows. It clearly shows. He's still got the class and the finishing ability, but he doesn't look like he's the dynamic player that he has been the past 2 years. But the problem is it's not between the ears for the center backs. That's just pure lack of talent. They're just not good. And that's not really the fault of Klopp. You know, he's putting back and putting out what he can. But Oblak, the guy they got from Germany, he is that was pure desperation buy. That was pure desperation buy. And I think they would have been better off almost taking someone on loan from a Premier League team and hoping for the best there, because Oblak is I don't think Kabak or whatever his name is, he's not it. So, and when you're heart of your defense, you know, the part that's supposed to be the best part and be the anchor isn't there. It's what's made Trent Alexander-Arnold look mediocre at best. And Robo is still doing, you know, Robertson is I think the better. If it's not Virgil van Dijk, Robertson's probably their best defender, period. He still looks good, but he's only one guy in that 4-man defense, and that's not enough, and especially when he's out wide. So unfortunately, I don't see it getting any better anytime soon for Liverpool unless they fix that.
Continuity is a big word for them, because that, like we talked about, they were able to run the same 11 dudes out there pretty much every big match. They didn't have to rotate, and those guys knew how the other guys were going to move, especially that back four. And in soccer specifically, those guys in the back have to be all locked in and working together. Otherwise, with one mistake, one guy not being in line with the rest of them, can lead to mistakes and easy goals for their team. So when you're rotating guys back there, and a lot of them haven't even played the center back position before. Fabinho has filled in from time to time, and Hendo has been playing before he got hurt too. Like, it's hard to be elite when you're constantly rotating players in some of the most important positions.
And
But
you've also
let's
had
not
guys.
trip though.
Go ahead.
I was saying, let's not sugarcoat this. There's no reason to lose to Fulham. There's no reason to lose to Sheffield, or they beat Sheffield, but you know, there's no excuse for losing to teams that are 15 through 20. That's unexcusable. But
That's why I say, like, is it a tank?
The problem is tanking doesn't help you in soccer.
Exactly.
You know,
That's why I asked, like,
I think you're also just seeing guys who have. I think the thing about football that's so unique is the same team. Your team can change over from year to year. When you look at Liverpool's team, their big three up front, Firmino, Salah, and Mane, have been together now for 4 years, which in football is an eternity. And Joe has talked about those three guys specifically have played heavy minutes, heavy amount of matches in the last 4 to 5 years. And I think it's just kind of, you just hit that wall. And I think if you look at Mane, hasn't played well this year at all, except for the very beginning of the year. Firmino has lost all his confidence in front of goal. Like, Firmino is just, he's a striker. He's a number 9 on his jersey, but he's not that as a player. And I think those three guys specifically have just hit that wall, and it has just kind of all come apart. So I think it'll be very interesting come May to see what happens. Number one, does Klopp stay? And number two, if Klopp does stay, what happens to that team? Because I think when you have a season this poor, injuries or not, things will change. Somebody's going to have to go. Some pieces will have to go, even if Klopp is there. So Liverpool are a very interesting position. Now, in the Champions League, we had a great match.
2 great matches, really.
2 of them, actually. Let's start with the big one. Well, the bigger one, because the biggest star in the sport his squad has been eliminated. Sorry, Jerm.
I
Zach,
seen that. I seen it.
Zach, to be fair, we got to give credit where it is due. Zach said this 3 weeks ago on the show that Porto would give Juventus problems. I thought they'll make it competitive, but they won't beat them. Well, here we sit this evening, 4-4. Porto goes through on away goals, which I find very weird when there's no fans in the stands, but okay, they earned it. Zach and Joe talk to me. What I guess the bigger picture is what now for Juventus? Because this Ronaldo was brought here for this competition. Let's be very clear. And now we got a round of 16 out. Last year they were out in the quarterfinals. What happens now?
They've been eliminated twice in 7 months from the Champions League. When you figure restart and everything like that. And I said this in the preview when we talked last week. I said Juve is not a better team since Ronaldo has gotten there. They're just not. They don't play as well. And I don't know if it's necessarily Ronaldo's fault, because as Elton actually pointed out, Ronaldo's on some of the best form of his career, and he's playing exceptionally well. The pieces just don't fit around him well. You look at that midfield that they had today, and there's just nothing inspiring about watching Rabiot, Ramsey, and I can't even think of who the last one was. Betancourt, maybe. I don't know. But it's just blah. There's nothing about that midfield that makes me feel inspired about that team. And that's why I liked Porto, over 2 legs. And whether away goals should have been a thing this year or not, they are. And when Porto went down to 10 men in this match on a bogus second yellow, if you ask me.
And not only, Jack, was it down, they went down to 10 men early.
54th minute.
Yeah, so they played with 10 men for a really long time.
54th minute, they went down to 10 men, and Chiesa looked brilliant for Juve. And Juve, I don't care. I know funding is really tough in Juve right now, and I saw that Juve's president of the board said that he submitted this proposal to make the last 15 minutes of every match be a subscription service. Like, fuck out of here, dude. Like, just because you don't have money and you're struggling right now, like, don't give me this shit. Like, I'm not here for this. They need to buy Chiesa. They need to permanently make him a part of that team. He was brilliant today. But Ronaldo and Juve, that experiment didn't work. And I got nothing else to say, but I told you I liked Porto, and look what happened.
Yeah, I was wrong for sure. I thought even with the suspect midfield, I thought they'd do enough. And I am not a Porto fan. Me and Zach were talking during the game that I have zero love for Porto, even though they are the underdog. And I usually like that in the Champions League, at least when it's not my team playing. But it was, I think Ronaldo is on the move. I'm not sure where he goes because there's not a lot of teams that confront his bill. But Juve is in a similar situation as Barca, where they don't have a whole lot of money right now. And he's taking up a huge chunk of their wage bill right now. So,
just in. Jamaldo moving too. Just in.
Shout out Jamaldo behind this camera.
so
Feel free to turn your camera on and come through.
So I think Ronaldo might be on the move, and I think Pirlo's fine. I don't think he's going anywhere. But that midfield definitely needs some attention for sure. It's the first time a Ronaldo-led team has been out this early in the Champions League in a very long time, and that was his his fanatics' big criticism of his rival, Mr. Messi, was that he'd been knocked out of the Champions League early and all that kind of stuff. So not a whole lot of legs for them to stand on anymore now that Mr. Ronaldo's been put out early now too.
Well, I mean, that's not true. Messi still can't do anything internationally.
Well, if what I think is going to happen, if what I think is going to happen tomorrow, Mr. Messi won't be here much longer. If what's supposed to happen happens tomorrow with Paris Saint-Germain. Now, match 2 today. Sorry, Trav, we got to do this again.
Before you even say that, who's been on more teams, Ronaldo or LeBron James?
Ronaldo.
Okay.
Ronaldo.
Let's see. Yeah, Ronaldo has.
He started at what? Sporting.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went to United.
Sporting,
Real,
and then Juve. LeBron's on team 3.
Cavaliers,
Miami and LA.
Back to Cavaliers.
If you want to count, if
Miami,
you're
that's
counting
four.
that change.
That's 4.
In fairness, them Cavalier teams was 2 different teams.
So that's 4 teams.
4 teams.
All right, then it's a tie.
I quit. Go ahead.
Nah, you stay on. So
Talk about it.
leg 2, Dortmund, the Erling Haaland World Tour continues.
That's that dude right there.
Going to Sevilla, and hey, it was exciting. It was 2-0 early. Dortmund looked clear, and it was going to be easy. And Sevilla pulled it back to a 2-2 aggregate, not able to quite get over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
But this also comes off Haaland having 2 goals against Bayern Munich on Saturday. He lost to Bayern, but he's gonna be the. We talk about Mbappe, and Mbappe is great. I think Haaland is gonna be the story of the summer as the sweepstakes, because as Joe alluded to with Ronaldo, we talked about some of the economics of cross-pro football. Who's gonna be able to flip the bill? Because that kid, with every passing minute, gets close to the 200 million mark.
That's the match that I watched the majority of, and it was entertaining from a tactical standpoint, but it was also entertaining in between whistles, because both of the times Haaland scored, the Sevilla players took exception to his celebrations. It got quite heated throughout that whole game, so it was a lot of fun to watch, and you could see and tell how much that game mattered to both teams and how frustrated they were getting with some of the officials' calls and everything like that. But it was a lot of fun to watch that particular game, and the intensity level was ratcheted up quite a bit, so that was good.
Rightfully so, though. That Sevilla goalkeeper kind of gotten Haaland's face.
He started it, absolutely.
Yeah. So he got an instant dose of karma, and Haaland pretty much told him exactly how he felt. You know, the interesting thing is Erling Haaland is now the youngest goal scorer to score, or the player to score 20 goals the fastest in Champions League history. That's faster than Messi. That's faster than Ronaldo. He did it like 20 goals in like 28 games. Messi, it took like 46, and Ronaldo, it took like 58.
It was a wide margin.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not
it's
even
not close.
I didn't think, when we talked about Haaland moving in the summer and how if Dortmund are going to sell him, which they should, they'd be dumb not to. I didn't think that they would really get more than 150, 175 when it's all said and done. I'm not sure they're going to get him. They're going to sell him for anything less than 2 now. The man just continually makes his transfer value that much higher.
He is. What I didn't realize about him until Saturday with his environment is how tall he actually is. Like, I thought he was not small, but I thought he was like 5'11", 6 foot. He's actually like 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
He's a big. That's a big kid.
He's strong too. Like, he's not just like tall, skinny, wiry dude. He is built.
And that's always been the knock on like Giroux is that, yeah, he's tall and he's strong, but he's not fleet of foot. He's not super athletic as far as like, making really athletic runs. Well, Erling Haaland is that dude. He's quick. He's going to get in behind you. He's got the height. He's got the strength. And, I was listening to a London is Blue podcast. It's a Chelsea-based podcast, and they were talking about Haaland. The way transfers are going, this summer might be the only chance that these top-level teams will ever have to sign Erling Haaland. Because when players like this, they don't move very often. Neymar, Mbappe, Messi, Ronaldo, players of that caliber, Lewandowski, they don't move very often. So if you don't get them when they become available, you better check that box off now because it's never going to happen again. Barring, him falling from grace and coming back down to reality, which, I mean, at this point, I don't know if he will.
I don't think it's gonna happen. He is.
Dude,
All
man.
in-
I actually watched some of that. Dude, big time, man.
Mhm. Dortmund needed that. Dortmund
Young
needed
and
that
big,
victory bad.
young and big time.
The first goal that he got, he just stormed through shoulder to shoulder with one of the Sevilla defenders, knocked him down to the ground, turned and just put that sucker in the net. Like he's not a guy who's going to be going down easy either. He's tough. He's got everything you're looking for. And like you guys said, if the higher the price tag goes, the fewer and fewer clubs it's going to be an option to get him. So that's good news for Manchester City.
Yeah, because there are very few teams who got the thumbs up because there are very few teams who are
Germ.
going to have the pocketbook.
It's
Who's
the
going to
truth.
be able to write that check?
It's the truth.
City is one of the few teams that can do it.
He's really pricing himself out of a Barcelona and Real move, which is not so much because the clubs can't come up with the funds. Well, Barcelona's in financial ruins, but in normal Barcelona days, they could afford a transfer fee like that. But with Spain's rules about, you got to sell players to buy players and balancing your budget sheet, which is still ridiculous because I've done the math. They're still at a huge trade deficit other than, Atletico Madrid. But he's pricing himself out of moves all over the country. And it's going to be probably a 3-team race.
It's
Four.
a weird thing to say, yeah, he's playing too well. We can't afford it. But this is exactly what's happening. And it will be interesting. I think because I can really only think of 2 teams off the top of my head that could really write the check for him today. And that's City, and there's I'll say 3. City, Chelsea, and PSG are the only 3 teams who could write the check for him.
And I think the only way PSG does it is if they sell either Neymar or Mbappe.
Yeah, otherwise it's redundant. Like you're not going to have them both out there at the same time. Like him and Mbappe are occupying similar spaces.
And he's too good to be anybody's.
Yeah.
Second fiddle, huh?
That ain't going to happen.
So
And
basically, go ahead.
Can we for the people? Can we say that number real quick one more time, Westrick? Because that number is important here.
The
number for Haaland. Yes.
200 million. 200 plus. 200 M's. And let's not forget who his agent is. Mino Raiola is his agent, and that's going to be an easy 50 million for him alone. He's going to want 50 million just for being his agent and facilitating this transfer.
And he might not even be the one facilitating it because from what I've been hearing, his dad is going to be a bigger influence than his agent, and then he'll just have to sit there and collect a check because he's the agent. Drew.
In basketball terms, he's doing a Gilbert Arenas when he was in Golden State, just raised his stock up so high. You got to really pay him.
Think
So
Think after. Let's go to views. Think after the trade for oh, shit.
Khalil Mack.
No, quarterback. Who just got traded?
Carson Wentz.
So we were talking about the value of Deshaun Watson
Mhm,
was going to be 3 or 4 first-round picks, you
Mhm.
know, based off the trade from Wentz. It's the same.
It's
same
one of
concept, like-
those. It's one of
Yeah,
those.
like it's.
Got you. Got
But
you.
his is purely based on how disgustingly good he is.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I got 40 cent on it, so I mean, does that mean I can?
That
I'm
won't
just-
even buy the pen that he'll use to sign that contract.
Yeah. It's gonna be a pretty astronomical. 'Cause I think Neymar was what 222.
222. And Mbappe was like 211, I think, or 209.
Mbappe was like 211.
22.
And the reason it's going to be this summer is because next year he has a release clause in his contract that teams can just pay that one flat rate to get his services, which I think is 75 mil. And that is dirt cheap for somebody of his ability level. So that's why this summer is going to be the time to cash in, because otherwise teams can get him for significantly less than what he's valued
Yeah.
at.
The only-
Financially, Dortmund almost has to sell him this summer. They
Regardless of
almost
what
don't even
happens.
have a choice.
Unless they sell Sancho instead. Sancho's we all talk about Erling Haaland. Let's not sleep on Jadon Sancho's. His numbers are disgustingly good as well.
Yeah.
And he's going
He
to
will be
cost
pricey
over
too.
100 million to
Yeah.
get Jadon Sancho. But, you know, if you could take
Yeah.
Erling Haaland or Jadon Sancho, I mean, when you're at that kind of money, you're backing up the Brinks trunk anyway. You're bringing in the Brinks yacht. Like,
Yeah.
at that point,
Yeah.
why would you stop at Jadon Sancho when you can get Erling Haaland?
At that point, isn't the Bentley just made of money?
Pretty much.
It's almost.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes, it's almost this. You all will see when we get to May and we start getting into transfer season again in May and this summer. You will see some numbers tossed around. You're gonna be just like, "What is like?" What are we
And mind
talking
you, this is during COVID where teams are being financially crippled. You have teams potentially filing bankruptcy, and they're still going to be throwing, you know, large amounts of M's.
It's
Yeah.
all about the mms in soccer.
So
They got it.
yeah, it is purely driven. Unlike our sports here in America, we can talk draft picks and this, that, and the third. In that sport, it is purely money. That's
Mhm.
it.
200
ain't
mil
no-
is the NFL salary cap projection this year.
Them folks getting paid that.
So think of 3 salary caps. That's early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
3 of them.
I've chosen the wrong career all this time.
Joe, who we got tomorrow? Liverpool and Leipzig?
Yep, Liverpool, Leipzig, and Liverpool is up 2-0 on aggregate, and PSG, Barcelona. PSG's got that 4-1 lead, and that's going to be pretty difficult for Barca to turn that one around.
So purely for my man Trav's sake, let's go Liverpool. I know it's Premier League rivalry between the 4 of us, but just for the sake of my man Trav, so he can have something else, so he can continue to enjoy the rest of this season. Let's go Liverpool. Hold on to that.
Nope.
Now-
They got to go home just like Juve did. Nope.
Germ.
See, nope. Because what goes around comes around. It may not be soccer. You gonna see me in one of these domains. You gonna see me in one of these domains. You think it was bad February the 7th for these people? It could get worse.
You get
Leipzig's
word?
on good form, though.
Hmm?
Or
Leipzig's on what, 6 in a row they won?
I got the last 5, and they got all greens next to their name, so at least 5 in a row for sure.
I think it's 6.
Wow.
That'll be interesting. And then next week we'll definitely be back. Now, what day next week do Manchester City and Chelsea play? In Champions League.
City is on Tuesday against Gladbach, and Chelsea is on Wednesday against Atletico.
Okay.
Both-
I think
both are
next
up.
Tuesday we'll talk about Chelsea's Champions League because I think by the time we come back here Tuesday, City will be up like 7-0 on aggregate or some ridiculous number. It won't
Yeah.
be much to talk about. So, know your role to close out the show. We're going to talk international football. The international break is coming up in about 2 weeks. South America qualifiers have been canceled. It looks like they're not going to have the South American qualifiers because of the COVID situation. But we still want to talk about again, as Joe and Zach discussed. We talked about the seasons a couple of weeks ago. International football is another part of your season. So Zach, Joe, take it away. What is the international break? Why are matches essentially just being stopped? What's happening? Talk about the international break.
So the international break is just a chance for players to go represent their national teams, whoever country they represent. And most of the time it's for friendly matches, exhibition matches that don't really mean shit unless it's qualifiers. And it's just a chance for them to, kind of re-attack, how they play as a team. It's a chance for, the fringe players who don't normally star in the 11 to get some much needed experience internationally. It's a chance for young up and comers to see what they've got, to see if there's something that they may like in the future. It's also just a giant pain in the ass for most clubs, especially during COVID. Liverpool's already said that their players aren't going anywhere. Chelsea followed suit and said that their players aren't going anywhere during this break because of the mandatory quarantine that follows it. It's a pain in the ass.
At least Liverpool doing something right.
Hey, they'll probably be okay tomorrow. They just gotta, not lose by 3.
And Zach talked about it. International break. If you ask most people who really, I'm not even gonna say it's 50 people. Most people really just do. Most fans really can't stand the international break. It's just as Zach talked about. It's just madly inconvenient.
You're pretty much just, as a fan of one of your teams, you're just hoping that all of the guys that go out on international duty for their teams come back healthy. That is literally the only thing that you're hoping for. And most of the time, for teams that have guys who are kind of got that injury bug about them, it happens almost every international break where somebody comes back and has tweaked a hamstring. And it's never anything too serious, but it's just nagging injuries that don't go away for a while. And now your club manager is sitting here trying to reshuffle all of his best laid plans because of something that happened not on his watch. So it's
for a game that didn't matter,
for exhibition matches and things. There are breaks where they are doing qualifiers, and those ones do mean more. However, if we're looking at club soccer, it's definitely frustrating. Internationally, the big stuff is when you have international competitions and tournaments like the World Cup, like the Euros, some of the CONCACAF championships and things like that. Those mean a lot more, obviously, and are a lot more exciting and not a pain in the ass. But the breaks are necessary for the national teams to get some work in, for sure, even though it's frustrating for club teams. And
go
ahead, Zach.
I think that really breaks down. Like, it really depends on what kind of soccer fan you are, because there are soccer fans out there that are just international fans. They don't like a specific team. They just like their international team, and that's completely fine. those people live for international breaks because that's their chance to see, players. Most of us who enjoy club football because frankly it's the better football. We really dislike international breaks, especially friendly international breaks, just because like Big Shot said, it's just an inconvenience.
Yeah, I would definitely fall into that side of international things. Like I really only follow international football when it's time for the big competitions, when it's time for the World Cup, European Championship. I don't follow the qualifiers. I certainly don't follow the friendlies. So you would count me in on that side of the legend. Of now, there is a documentary, and now this kind of hits on the Blue vs. Blue podcast. You should go back and watch the documentary episode they did for sure. Copa 90 did do one on a mini doc on Messi in Argentina, which actually was really fascinating. It was around basically Argentina in the last World Cup was like this close to not qualifying. It was basically around Messi essentially bailing them out. I'll send it to y'all, but international football is a pain for me. And it's like, this is a pain. Who's going to come back hurt? As Joe talked about, inevitably somebody come back hurt. And it's like, all right.
And as a manager of an international team, your responsibilities are significantly different from a club manager. If you're looking at it from that perspective, when they're not on international duty with their clubs, practicing and setting up training camps and things, they're out watching their players from their country and scouting out all of the young talent that's coming up and going to see guys play, seeing what kind of form your best players for your country are in with their club teams, and making decisions like that. So on the managerial side, it's a lot different because you're going a long time without seeing your players under your guided or leadership, because you're interacting with the club managers a little bit, talking to them, and going to their matches and figuring out what you're going to do with your squad currently. So it's a whole different style of play at times too, because you're trying to blend together a bunch of guys that don't play together very often, except for on these international breaks that don't come around very often.
Or if you're Yogi Low and you've already decided you're stepping down after the Euros and you're at the Eintracht Frankfurt game last week and you get caught sleeping in the middle of the game, there's always that.
Oh wow!
My man Yogi was like, "Look, my 2-week notice is on the way."
Yeah.
I'm here for this.
He's never shied away from doing some inappropriate things, whether he's coaching or not.
Yeah,
in the public eye. He's had some other instances where he's done some
suspect shit,
some uncouth things on the sideline. So
as we wrap this up, remember next Tuesday we'll be back. Champions League preview, review. Oh,
we forgot something.
What did we forget?
Something that I told everyone that I would go over.
Oh, we forgot the best part.
Yeah,
we forgot the best part.
You were gonna skip right over that shit. You were
saving the best for last.
In the spirit of MJ, in the spirit of Germ, we have a game to play.
Yep.
So Zach, take it away.
I took our famous blind GM. Oh, look, Germ's already mad. Look at him. I took our famous blind GM from 94 Feet of Life, and I kind of created a 3-player start one, bench one, cut one, but it's blind. So it's all based on stats. You have no idea who the players are. You have no idea how old they are, how tall they are. You don't have any physical data other than statistics. And as we all know, Trav, yeah, I'm looking at you. A lot of people don't like this game because it makes shit real hard And it makes it makes things kind of make you question yourself and what you know and how you process things. And truthfully, it just drumming this up, I did this all last night. It made me realize things about the way stats are perceived and construed. And what I found out, and as you saw in the sit one, start one, cut one, I went heavy based on XG stats. So basically, XG stats are next gen stats. It's XG and XA, so our expected goals and expected assist for your players. And then I also had shot creating attempts and goal created attempts. Those are all next gen stats, and that's how the soccer world kind of equivalates their in baseball terms the WAR. Wins against replacement. The higher your XG stats, the better you're supposedly be. And I put KDB's stats in there on purpose to be misleading and misconstruing, because what I found out is that the elite of the elite players have really great XG stats, but your other players, the XG stats don't really fit quite as well as what you would hope they do. And XG stats are great for teams. Your expected goals versus your actual goals. That's a great measurement. But what I found for midfielders is, at least in my eyes, I don't think it's a stat that you wanna put a whole lot of stock into. So with that being said, I think that the most common pick was B and C for the start and the bench. So naturally, I'm going to start with A, and I know that one's going to make Germaldo real happy because he's the only one who picked A to start. Now, I'll caveat that with saying that I didn't pick any bad players. None of these three are bad players. None of them are even subject to being called bad. What I did was I picked 3 English midfielders who are all up and coming. They all play in the Premier League. So all of their stats are all against the same competition. They're all relevant. Player A has an extra year of experience over the other 2. So he's got a little bit more data that you can use. But Germaldo, your favorite player of the 3 was none other than Mr. James Maddison from Leicester City.
That's pretty good. That's good.
It's a good player.
Wait, say it again. Make sure.
James Maddison, Leicester City was your start.
Okay.
Not bad. Of the 3, he's probably my least favorite.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. I wanted to make sure that you felt extra happy about your choice, because I know you love this game.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say his stats are bad, and I specifically chose 3 really good up and coming players. One, because as I told Trav before this whole thing started, I'm using this as data for future
references.
Yes. So best believe that more is to come, and you're going to be less happy with your choices in the future. I promise you that. So having James Maddison as your starter is not, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Ronnie, who did you pick as your?
I had C.
You had C. I know
was
Joe
the starter.
had C. Trav, who did you have?
I picked B as my starter.
Okay, so I'll go to B. We'll just go in alphabetical order. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to C, and I'll tell you why after I finish that. C is none other than, I know Joe's happy, Phil Foden.
I'll take it.
I know you would.
It.
I would never be disappointed with Phil Foden as my starter. Phil Foden's stats are phenomenal. His XG stats are phenomenal. His passing percentages are phenomenal. He is, for me, the best attacking option. So, and this is where it really depends on what kind of team you have. Do you have a team with more holding midfielders? Do you have a team with more attacking midfielders? Or do you have a combination of both? If it's between Madison and Phil Foden, they both kind of occupy a very similar role with their teams. I'm going to take Phil Foden over Madison. That's not necessarily a slight on Madison. It's just I like Phil Foden better. So, those of you that picked C as your starter, congratulations, you picked Phil Foden.
Shocker, Joe picked the Man City player.
Yeah, I know, right? As soon as you picked him, I was like, oh God, here we go. B, Trev, I don't think you'll be disappointed, at least, and I'm gonna be biased, obviously, as you can see, if this isn't a preface of who the player is. This is the reason I put him in here. One is because I think he's underrated. Two was that his XG stats are down, but not to his fault. So player B is Mason Mount. His XG stats are down because Chelsea can't finish the damn ball. Their forwards can't finish. And so his expected goals and expected assists are down because his front three can't finish.
But
That's not Mason Mount's fault.
generally overall, as a football player, he's good.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Because if you look at the three, him and Phil Foden have the best passing percentages.
Mhm.
Mason's short passing and long passing are better than Foden's. Phil Foden's mid-range passing is better than Mount's. Mount is the guy that you want. I don't want to say this because it's really high, lofty expectations, but he reminds me a lot of Cesc Fabregas in the way he facilitates the ball. But the thing that Fabregas didn't have that Mount does have is Mount can turn it on and be able to get you that clutch goal. He just did it against Liverpool. He had that kind of Erling Haaland, Eden Hazard-esque Chelsea time, where he got the ball and he put it in the back of the net. So that's why I chose Mount, is because if you pay too much attention to XG stats, you may be disappointed.
Mhm.
On paper, James Madison looked really great because he was well-rounded. His XG stats were high. So that's because he has Jamie Vardy in front of him. And Jamie Vardy finishes fucking everything. Phil Foden, much to his credit, also has an attacking three who are great finishers. Again, that's not, bad for any of the three. It's just that's why you see player B's XG stats aren't quite as good. If you pull up the dead ball passes and dead ball passing percentages that led to attempts, Mason Mount ranks second in the Premier League, not just of the third, second out of all players. He's behind KDB and he's ahead of Bruno Fernandes. So
That's good company to keep.
yeah, that's definitely good company to keep. So in true nature of, blind GM or sit one football, we'll call this football manager, blind football manager. The first one was a teaser. It was something that everyone could be happy with, because there were no bad players. Jerem, don't be too sad.
So basically, I cut Jern player and bench big shot player.
Yes.
It also goes to show you, as you guys really kind of get into the sport, and it's something I think that we talked about early. Determining who the best player is on a team in football is very tricky. If you're going to look at it purely on numbers, it's tricky because as Zach has illustrated with this game, how your team is set up. What role does your player play? So looking at goals, assists is a terrible way to judge who the best player on the team is. Because it's your best player is not always going to be on the end of chances. It might be the guy that's 2 passes before the chance that's actually the best player on the team. But his numbers aren't going to reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Zach points out with Mason Mount, he's creating chances, but he plays with a terrible finishing team. So now you're like, damn, Mason Mount. I'm just throwing this out random stat. At the end of the year, Mason Mount might have 6 assists for the whole year. You're like, damn, Mason Mount only had 6 assists for the whole year. Well, he was playing with a terrible team, a terrible finishing team.
Mm.
That doesn't reflect his ability. So I know Germ, for you, this is perfect. I know Germ is a analytic stat maven, no matter what the sport is. So I expect Germ by the time the next blind football manager comes up, he's gonna be ready. I believe him. My man Germ's gonna be ready. For sure.
Look, I'm picking Joel Embiid out here.
You gonna get Joel Embiid of football on the next one?
We doing good. We just gotta improve on getting the wings. That's all we gotta do.
What I think, and I can't remember, but I think MJ might have been the guy that cut his own player.
He picked the same as me. He started Phil and benched Madison and then cut Mason like I did. He picked the same 3 that I did.
I thought maybe he cut his own player, which would have been really funny.
Absolutely. And in soccer, it's definitely more observation and using your eyes to determine who's the best player, how a guy is doing. You have to watch the games. You have to actually pay attention. You can't just look at a stat sheet afterwards to know what happened. So that's what makes it it's very much different doing the blind GM in soccer than it is anywhere else, because you can't just look at the stats after a game on a match and decide and see what happened. You actually, power observation is super important in soccer.
And just to give you a preface on how I got to this whole thing is I was looking at chances created by the teams. So I started with teams, and number 1 is Manchester City, obviously, because, Pep. Number 2 is actually Chelsea, and they are leaps and bounds ahead of 3, 4, and 5 as far as chances created. Now, if you look at chances converted off of those, Chelsea are all the way down in 6th or 7th. That's not a recipe for success. So the fact that they're in 4th right now, they are overachieving to where they statistically should be.
So statistically, they are getting the chances. They just ain't converting.
Correct. And that's why Mason, like I said, that's why Mount's XG, XA stats are not great, because you can't put the ball in the back of the net for him. Timo still can't hit the broadside of a bar.
And as an Arsenal fan, the last time we were in any type of title contention was like the year Leicester won the title. And we finished 2nd in the league that year. And I remember Mesut Ozil was like on pace to have like 25 assists that season. Like he had like 14 assists in like the first 17 games, like just unbelievable. And then God bless him, he's still my boy, but my man Olivier Giroud went on like a 16-game goalless streak in the middle of the season. Literally didn't score for like 3 months. And the next thing you know, Leicester is hot still. Jamie Vardy is hurting everything that moves, and they're your Premier League champion. So again, Mesut Ozil that season, his XG and XGA probably was really, really high for the first 3 months. By the time you get to May, it's like, damn, Mesut Ozil had a terrible. No, he had a really good season. They just didn't finish nothing. So we're gonna continue to play this game to continue to get Germ and Trav and MJ and some of our newly inducted folks into this, because how this game is viewed is so different than what we're used to here in America. Because it can be tricky as to determining who is actually really good at this game. But we're gonna get out of here. Thanks, Germaldo, for coming on camera. Shout out to our man Trav, special guest in the building. Remember, Scene, that's the Facebook page, capital SCEN, YouTube, capital THE, capital SCEN. Germ's gonna edit this out. He's gonna put in all the social media links in the description box, so you're gonna be able to see everywhere we're at, the Instagram, the Twitch, Stoppage Time FC, the Facebook group. We're everywhere. Join us next Tuesday. Stoppage Time FC, Joe, Zach, Ron,